Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's Bad Brad, and here we are once again with another story. Now, I moved to Nashville in 1994, and it wasn't too much longer afterwards that I got in a group and we started chasing that elusive record deal. Now, Nashville was a totally different scene than Los Angeles at the time. And, this was right in the thick of, CMT and Crook and Chase and, all that stuff. CMT playing music videos all the time. So it was almost like, its own little world. And I can remember one of the bands, or the only band really, maybe one of two that you would see on CMT at the time, was a band called Little Texas. And they had Brady Seals in the band, and they had God Bless Texas as the hit, and then they had Brady Seals had his hit in the band, My Love. And, to me, they looked like guys kind of like I was at the time, a bunch of rockers that got together and got a record deal in Nashville. So, thought, this is interesting. What about this? Maybe we can do this. So I got to Nashville and, wasn't sure what to do. I played a few gigs. It started doing a little bit of the, club gig type things with my friends with the Wooten Brothers and Michael Fair and stuff like that. But it was just a little bit of work, but it was, it was something to get started. But obviously I was looking for something bigger. And, I believe I was either in the newspaper or in the Nashville Scene, which was like the local, rag where you would see, all the ads for, clubs and stuff like that. I remember answering an ad, and the ad was looking for rhythm guitarists for country group, have management, showcasing for labels, that kind of thing. And so I answered the ad. I called him up and I said, hey, I've just moved here from LA, and I'm a musician, and I normally play lead guitar, but hey, you guys they were looking really for an acoustic guitar player. And I didn't even own an acoustic when I moved to Nashville. But I called him up, and I believe it was kind of a thing where, okay, we've got a guitar you can use, and we're gonna have you come down to SIR and play with the band. So it wasn't having to learn anything beforehand. It was kind of like, just come on down. And when I came down, there was a couple, an older couple, Susie and Dugan. Now, Susie and Dugan were managing this band, and it had sort of a male model lead singer named Jeff, and had a talented lead guitar player named Pete Locke, and and then a few other guys kind of rounding out the lineup. But it also, on occasion, would have these what we called ringers back in the day. So we had a guy named Craig Krampf that would be rehearsing with us. Now, Craig Krampf is a well-known player in the old Nashville, and he is a guy that has tons of experience in the industry and producing and playing drums and all this. I don't know if Craig is still playing now, but interesting guy. And then on occasion, we would have a guy named Dan Dugmore playing with us on these showcases and rehearsing with us. Dan Dugmore played with Linda Ronstadt, and he was a big LA guy in that LA kind of country scene, and he would play pedal steel, and he would play, or lap steel, and he would play, he'd have a Les Paul that he would, do some additional, like a utility player. So right off the bat, you're getting to play with seasoned veterans. And this, band with this wealthy managers that were kind of funding the whole thing. And it was an interesting situation. And I took the gig. It didn't really pay so much as, if I had to miss a paid gig to do one of their showcases or a rehearsal or whatever, then I would tell Susie and Duke and say, look, I have a paid gig on this day, and you're asking me to do this showcase, or you're asking me to do that, and I'm going to miss work if I do this. And then they would say, okay, you're a professional player. Here's your thing. And not that I wasn't any better than Pete or anybody else in the band, but this is what I was doing to pay my bills. So they would pay me whatever I would make on my gig. They would pay me to play with this band. Now, back then, trying to get a record deal in Nashville in the 90s was a lot different than LA. In LA, you would build a following. You would play, the big clubs. And if you got where you started really packing out the clubs and creating a buzz, word would get out and the label guys would start to come out and see what you got. But here in Nashville, it was like you played showcases. Now, a showcase really wasn't anything about building a following. I mean, obviously, we would have a decent amount of people would come out to our showcases, but we weren't trying to build a following. We weren't really doing anything other than hone our sound in rehearsal, and then we would do these showcases. And that's kind of the Nashville get a record deal in the 90s routine. And there were many groups that that's exactly how they did it, and may have only played one showcase, and boom. Now, I had heard, I was not at this, but I had heard about the Brooks Dunn showcase. And I had heard, they've got two guys, Ronnie Dunn and Kix Brooks in Brooks Dunn. And these guys had probably done exactly what we had done. They put something together, they recorded some demos, and they said, okay, now we're going to showcase. So they rehearsed. Now, when you rehearse, it's almost like sparring in a boxing, it's sparring for a boxing event. You're never really going full bore until it's time for the show. So I had heard what had happened at the Brooks Dunn showcase. Ronnie Dunn was always kind of known as the voice of that band. He's an excellent country singer. And Kix Brooks, he was the sidekick, right? But apparently when they did their showcase, Ronnie Dunn's more of a stand in one place and sing my song perfectly and, great vocalist. But Kix Brooks, the minute that show kicked in and it wasn't rehearsal anymore, man, he was all over the stage and, doing kind of what Garth Brooks had kind of started to do there in the 90s, which made him take off. And Ronnie Dunn, afterwards, man, hey man, what was that? And he said, man, I'm performing, but they got their deal. And, Brooks and Dunn, man, they were duo of the year after year after year. And so they blew up. So that formula of having the great vocalist and the performer, that was what that put them on the map. And probably Kix, deciding to really put on a show while Ronnie, sang, that put them where they go, oh, this is almost like a duo, the Garth Brooks duo or something, So, that's how it worked in Nashville in the 90s. And so Thunderheart was on that same path. Now, I don't know if before I joined the band, if labels had passed on them, or really any of the behind the scenes work, or what Susie and Dugan were even doing as far as bringing label people there. You often don't know. You get these managers, and it's the same thing for LA. These managers and these lawyers would blow smoke up your you-know-what. Oh, we're going to get you guys a $500,000 record deal. Oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And they tell you all you want to hear, and you're like, oh man, that's awesome. Oh, this is going to be great. And you don't really know if they're bringing anybody out or not. They may be just being a manager of your band to impress chicks. And as far as Susie and Dugan, I feel like we were kind of like the wife's little play toys. That she would, she'd get these cute guys in this band and a couple seasoned vets, and she would put collages together for our flyers. She would take pictures of us individually and together, and then she would cut up these little pictures and create this collage on Thunderheart Showcase, and it was almost like she was playing with our career, and she was. It's an interesting story as we continue. So we played our showcases. I got to work with Craig Krampf and Dan Dugmore, and it didn't seem like anything was moving positive. There was nothing moving forward. It didn't seem like we were getting a record deal. And so at some point, we said, man, we want to go on tour. We want to go out and play. And I was pushing for that because I thought, man, surely if we get out there and play clubs, we'll be generating income. And I was at the age where I was 27 when I moved to Nashville, and man, I was itching to get out on the road. I wanted to tour. And so they said, okay, well, we'll put together a tour of the West. We'll take you out to Arizona, and we'll do this in Texas, and and they supposedly had booked this tour, but we couldn't take Craig Krampf, and we couldn't take Dan Dugmore on the road. So we had to get another young guy, another newbie to take out on the road. So they brought in this kid. Now the kid, he had a good look and everything, but we started, we were going to have to play some covers on this road gig. This was going to be like playing 3 or 4 sets a night. So I'm like, hey, I'm used to doing that. I can do 3 or 4 sets. I can sing a bunch of songs. So we were poised to do that, but they brought in this drummer, and they said, okay, let's audition this drummer. So we were playing with this guy, and he just could not keep up at all. And we didn't have time to rehearse and, practice Lynyrd Skynyrd songs and stuff like that. We needed a guy that was ready to go, because we had already been rehearsing. And we had one guy that was like a used car salesman, Rich, that had been part of the project. But Rich, he had some drinking problems and some issues, and so it was quickly realized Rich is not reliable. Rich doesn't show up, and hey, by the way, he's a car salesman, so he's got to be at work. So they bring in this kid, and we're playing with him, and he's terrible. And so we go back home, and we're getting some beers, and we're sitting around, and we're like, man, this guy, no, this is not gonna work. Like, so Pete calls up Susie, and he's like, look, Susie, this guy is not gonna work. We cannot go out on the road with this guy. We're gonna have to get somebody else. No, Peter, that's the guy. That's who we're gonna use. And he's like, Susie, you don't get it. He sucks. And she starts to go, Pete, you have a lot of anger. I just can't do this anymore. Pete, you have a lot of anger. And before you know it, she just pulled the plug on the whole thing. So the tour, everything. And I had actually, because we were supposed to go out on the road, I I had let my lease go on my apartment, so I was, you know, living with these guys. It's like, hey, I'm gonna sleep on the floor till we get this tour off the ground, and then, you know, we're gonna live on the road. And so all of a sudden, it just goes up. It just blows up. She takes that deck of cards and just because we wouldn't get little cute boy on drums, because he was terrible. Oh God. So there goes our whole, you know, 90s, you know, trying to get a record deal in Nashville. And I would, you know, down the road do an album with Pete called Suitcase Pimps, Love is Grand. And we did that record, and you know, that was kind of closing the chapter on our time, you know, with Pete at least. And you know, the singer, I think he went back out west, and he got back into modeling and photography, and that's what he's doing now. But you know, we chased that elusive record deal in Nashville, and it didn't happen. But a little side story, and this is, people love these stories on this channel. So Craig Krampf, I would say, hey man, you know, tell me a story. And he was telling how he played drums for Little Richard for a while. He was on the road with Little Richard, the architect of rock and roll, right? So I said, man, tell me a Little Richard story. Tell me a story. So he goes, well, you know, I was playing with Little Richard, and every night, you know, it'd be really good, and you know, I'm having fun, and you know, we're playing these places, and he said, but every night we would play Blueberry Hill, like he'd want to do the Fats Domino song. And, you know, we'd be playing the song, and it'd be sounding great, and all of a sudden you get to the bridge, and Little Richard would get off the piano and grab the mic and start, you know, singing, and the bottom would drop out of the band. Like, all of a sudden, there was nothing there. And so he said, man, is this happened every night? So he said at one point, he was backstage with Little Richard. He says, hey, Little Richard, can I ask you something? He said, oh, yes, Craig, you can ask me whatever you want. Yes, Craig, ask me what you want. Say what you feel, Craig. So Craig goes, you know, every night we play Blueberry Hill, and it sounds great. But on the bridge, you always get up, and it's like, you know, the music drops out. And he goes, Craig, I don't know that chord, and I don't ever want to know that chord. So Little Richard just simply didn't know that chord. Wherever he goes in the bridge there, I've never played that song. But he didn't know the chord, and he didn't want to know it. So whenever it got to the bridge, he'd just get up and take the mic and, you know, and just sing away. It's stories like that kind of make it all worthwhile in the music business. If you'd enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.